Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/Malicious Compliance. In today's episode, no abbreviations whatsoever? Okay, no problem. Salaried, exempt employees have to punch a time card now? Okay. It would sure be a shame if someone notified the labor board about your illegal PTO practices, though. How to save money on travel. One cycle only? Okay. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. No abbreviations whatsoever? Okay, no problem. Recently, my quality assurance has handed down a new policy that we are not to use any abbreviations in our call notes whatsoever. Shorthand is not permitted. I work in a call center taking information for admissions of new medical clients. So the people reading my charts/notes will be medical professionals. The only abbreviations used are those commonly known in the practice, such as IOP, intensive outpatient, ASAP, who doesn't know this, etc. Come on now. So I have adopted their rule to the letter. I wrote every single thing out that would typically be abbreviated. Sometimes the notes require that times be recorded. Example, I set the callback expectation for by 10 a.m. In my most recent scoring, I was marked off for using spelling errors in notes. When I requested a review of my score, my supervisor advised me that writing anti-meridium was what caused me to lose points. I kindly cited the new rule that requires no abbreviations be used. My supervisor stated that he had never heard the term anti-meridium before. I explained what it meant, being the long form of the term AM. My score was amended to reflect no error was made. Salaried, exempt employees have to punch a time card now? Okay. It would sure be a shame if someone notified the labor board about your illegal PTO practices, though. A few years ago, I was employed by a relatively small but publicly traded company. I virtually guarantee you wouldn't recognize the name if you weren't in their specific little corner of industry. Well, this place went public and decided to use some of the money to purchase an even smaller company, and suddenly we were in the DoD contracting business. As you may or may not know, the U.S. Department of Defense places restrictions on private sector contractors about how much profit they're allowed to make, among other cost control mechanisms. One such mechanism is that anyone working on DoD contracts has to charge their time to specific project codes so that they can compare your actual costs to the costs you estimated when you were awarded the contract. Well, our genius company decided that instead of only having the personnel working on these projects, which was no more than 50 people out of over 1,000, that they would make every single salary person sign a time card every week. For 95% plus of us, we charged 100% of our labor to the commercial side of the business, which was one project code. Non-defense overhead or something like that. Most people just charged 8 hours per day regardless of how many hours they actually worked, because no one tracks their time down to the minute. Shortly after this happened, new state legislation went into effect requiring that all employers provide 1 hour of sick leave per 40 hours worked. Nobody paid much attention to it. But I did, because I was in a fairly specialized engineering role, with only 2 of us at the whole company, and I trained the other guy, who also happened to live overseas to support another site. This is important later. I started charging my actual hours. I noticed that despite how many hours I charged, the amount of PTO I was accruing stayed the same. This happened 3 or 4 paychecks in a row, and then I approached HR. They looked at me like I had 2 heads when I informed them they were not adjusting my PTO accruals based on hours worked. But your salary. You're paid for 40 hours regardless of how many hours you work, they told me. I explained how that didn't really apply to the situation due to the new legislation. They again looked at me like I was completely crazy. They said they'd get back to me with an answer in a week or 2. Fast forward 2 months. I'm still diligently filling out my time cards like a good little drone, and have spoken with several of my work buddies who start doing the same. The thing about this particular group of folks was that we all traveled, internationally, oftentimes last minute, on a regular basis for work. Well, wouldn't you know it, it turns out that travel time, per our state labor laws, is considered working time. 16 hours worth of flights to Germany? All working time. I believe the language is place of rest to place of rest. And while you're there, you're not exactly relaxing. It's long days, handling customer concerns, multiple days in a row. A perfect storm of circumstances happened that fall, where we were all traveling around the same time, and we all booked 120-plus-hour weeks of work. We all eagerly awaited our pay stubs to see all that extra PTO accrued and, nope. We approached HR again. They told us they would escalate the issue to their attorney. We went back to work. Well, not surprisingly, things started going downhill for all of us. We started bitching about things a bit, and we all end up quietly looking for jobs. Within a 5-week period, all of us put in our notices, and I lost my patience. I wrote an email to HR detailing our contacts with them and informed them that I would be escalating to the labor board without a full accounting of all backowed PTO that would need to be paid. I got a panicked phone call within about 5 minutes. HR drone, why are you even recording your hours that way? Your salary. Me, because we have to fill out time cards. HR drone, why don't you just put 8 hours per day like everyone else? Me, I'm sorry, but it sounds like you're asking me to falsify my time card. When I sign it, the time card specifically asks me whether I've reported my time accurately, under threat of prosecution. HR drone, no, why haven't you brought up this issue previously? Me, I have. Twice. With you. I detailed those encounters in the email I just sent. I'm sure the company's attorney has informed you of your requirements by now. HR drone, they haven't gotten back to me. Me, grin now wide across my face. Well, funny enough, I went ahead and emailed our general counsel. It turns out my email was the first they've heard the concern. I've put in my notice. I expect to be paid in full for all backowed PTO, or I'll be filing a report with LNI, who take accusations of wage theft fairly seriously. I believe they give you a week to remit payment or pay up to triple what's owed. HR drone. Me, please contact me via email only when you have decided on a path forward. Click. It turns out that not only did I get paid the full PTO I thought I was owed, there was a bit extra on there as well. And one of my buddies went ahead and reported the company to the labor board anyway, which apparently caused quite the stir. Last I heard, the HR department, with the exception of a couple of recruiters, got completely turned over, all the way up to the VP. How to save money on travel. I was working as a consultant for a company in New Jersey. They had a branch in Reno, Nevada that I had to visit about once every 3 weeks. I booked my own travel arrangements and billed the client. After a couple of trips, I got call from the client's bean counter. He wanted to know why I was flying to San Francisco. I explained that there were no direct flights to Reno. The quickest way was to fly to San Francisco then to Reno. He had found a route Newark/Chicago/Reno that was almost $100 cheaper. I said I had looked into that, but there was a layover in Chicago which made the travel time a lot longer. He replied that it was company policy to only reimburse for the cheapest fare. Okay. On my next trip, I found I could save almost $150 by making a stop in Dallas. But it increased my travel time by almost 3 hours. My contract specifically said I would bill for all travel time. The contract lasted about a year. For each trip, I searched for the cheapest fare regardless of the number of stops. I was paid for a lot of hours sitting in airports, saving the client money on airfare. One cycle only? Okay. Before I start, my husband and I have a great and loving relationship. He can just be a pain in the ass when he thinks he's right about something. so we recently moved into a new house. Our new kitchen is smaller, so we decided to replace our separate washer and dryer with a combination machine. It's not as powerful, so no matter what setting you use, the clothes come out damp and need an extra 30 minutes in the dry-only cycle. I've always done all the laundry, we split the housework, but for some reason my husband got it into his head that I was over-drying the clothes. I explained that I was in fact normal drying them, but he knew better. We had several increasingly heated discussions in which this guy who could count the number of washing loads he's done in his life on one hand attempted to mansplain laundry to me, culminating in an incident where he unplugged the machine mid-cycle and said, "I'm putting my foot down about this, one cycle only." Cue the malicious compliance. I did a load of just his clothes. I used one wash and dry cycle on the dryingest setting. Of course, they were still damp by the end. But dutifully I hung them in my husband's closet. The next day, he wanted to know why his favorite shirt hadn't been dried properly. I shrugged. You put your foot down. One cycle only. Funny, he's let me do the laundry in peace since then. Edit, for everyone asking why on earth I do laundry in my kitchen, we live in the UK. Laundry rooms aren't as common here as they are in some other parts of the world, and in many houses, including ours, the kitchen is literally the only place a washing machine/dryer can be plumbed in. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.